Hey, Dr. Berg here again. Today we're going to talk about the multivitamin mineral scam. And yes, it is a scam. You go to any GNC and you're going to find one-a-days, okay, or multivitamin mineral products with the absolute worst, cheapest ingredients on the planet. So let's first start with the ingredients. When you read the back of the ingredients on these bottles, the first ingredient is always calcium carbonate. What is that? That's limestone. And also you need to realize that first ingredient is usually the majority of the product. So this is why these vitamin bottles are so heavy, because we have rocks in them. There's two things you have to be careful about taking in a supplement. One is iron, because our bodies have a very difficult time getting rid of it. Number two, calcium, and especially the carbonate version, because the body has to literally go through many different steps, I think up to 12 steps before it gets absorbed. So we're not talking about the calcium that comes from cheese or dairy. We're talking about a calcium in the earth. So it's a very different form of calcium. All right, the next ingredient you're going to see in a lot of these products is magnesium oxide. Again, another very inexpensive ingredient. And the type of magnesium is very important because magnesium oxide has the lowest bioavailability, the absorption. So we're talking about like 3 to 4% gets absorbed versus magnesium glycinate, which is more expensive, but you absorb 80%. Some people say, well, it's cheap, that's fine, I'll just take more. Well, the more you take, the more it becomes a laxative, so it comes with a package. It might be good if you have constipation, but other than that, that's not the form that I would recommend. And then we have the next ingredient, ascorbic acid. You have two types of vitamins. You have synthetic and natural. And even the synthetic ones, which are more man-made in a lab, they can call them natural because there's no legal definition of the word natural. Because synthetic could come from petroleum and that comes from nature, right? Or coal tar, well, that's from nature, it could be natural. You will probably hear from certain medical experts that there's no difference between natural and synthetic. If we're looking at the molecule, it's the same molecular structure at the basic level. But let me just ask you this, how can you tell me that you're going to take coal tar, okay, and you're going to take other chemicals and you're going to synthesize a vitamin and you're going to tell me that's the same as something that came from nature? You can't say that. And even if you look at the chemistry, it's not 100% the same because there's certain versions of that synthetic that don't really get absorbed in our body. So you can't say they're exactly identical. In nature, these vitamins never come as an isolated fraction. They come as a package with a lot of different things. And this is why, number 4, what is missing is something called cofactors. A cofactor is something that actually helps something. If we take a look at this book right here in biochemistry, this is one of my favorite books in biochemistry, Biochemistry and Molecular Biology by William Elliott. You know, when I took biochemistry in college, what they didn't really emphasize is the cofactors. Cofactors are vitamins and minerals. Biochemistry cannot work without cofactors, without vitamins and minerals. That's one of the purposes of why we need nutrition, okay, for these biochemical pathways to occur. If we're dealing with making hair and body tissue or even breaking down food, all these chemical pathways require certain nutrition. Now that's one purpose of nutrition. I'm kind of bouncing in this presentation, but I think it's important to know why we need nutrients in the first place. Why would you need a multivitamin and mineral? Well, because we can't get it from food. That's true, but now you're going to get it from a multivitamin that is synthetic with a lot of additional things in there and fillers. You may not be getting what you think you're getting. We need vitamins and minerals for cofactors. We also need vitamins and minerals to activate our genes. Like even vitamin D activates over 2,000 genes, right? And then you have other vitamins that are involved in the making of neurotransmitters in body tissue. In nature, you never see this one single vitamin. It's always in a complex. And this is why I'm very much against taking just one specific vitamin, unless it has the other cofactors, because eventually you're going to deplete these cofactors if you're taking just one vitamin, especially in higher doses. There's other fillers as well. Maltodextrin is a big one. I didn't know this until I actually kind of got more familiar with the manufacturing companies in vitamins and minerals. This is a really common filler that they use in so many different vitamins to turn things into like a powder, and they dry it. They have to use some type of carrier, and maltodextrin is the big one. What is maltodextrin? Maltodextrin is a highly refined industrial starch. So here's an example of an industrial starch right here. Corn starch. We're talking about a type of corn that's not even edible. It's called field corn or dent corn, very cheap. I mean, the taxpayers actually even subsidize that corn. So the price comes down to like under $200 per cubic ton. You can imagine how much of this stuff you can get for just pennies. And this is why they use it. It's a cheap filler. But it's not just a cheap filler. It comes with a package. It's not even classified as a sugar. It's classified as a complex carbohydrate. I'm like, what? Like, what do you mean, like a potato or like rice? No. How can it be that if it acts so much like a sugar and it's so refined already? When you consume it, your blood sugar will spike way more than any sugar that you would eat. But somehow there's a legal loophole that they can call it a complex carbohydrate or a starch, but it behaves like a sugar. So when you have this in your supplements, you're just basically jacking up your blood sugar, which could easily nullify the benefits. When we talk about ascorbic acid, people think, oh, vitamin C. Well, this is a synthesized version of a part of the vitamin C complex called ascorbic acid, which is an antioxidant part. And they make ascorbic acid, usually like 90% plus is made in China. And they make it from GMO corn. And they also add sulfuric acid to it. So here they're taking this, gosh, corn again, everything is like made from corn, adding sulfuric acid, chemically making this ascorbic acid and packaging it in a very beautiful way. So you think you're getting this, wow, I'm getting this vitamin C. It's probably similar to the vitamin C from oranges. No, it's an industrial product. Now, I'm not saying that vitamin C doesn't work. Even the synthetic version doesn't work. All I'm saying is that I think it's important to know where it really comes from. And there is a big difference between the natural versus synthetic. If you look at the whole picture, and especially if you compare it to nature. Then we get into cyanocobalamin. Again, the synthetic version of B12. A lot of people have a genetic issue absorbing or converting into the active form of B12 and folate, which is vitamin B9. And so if they're taking the synthetic version like folic acid, not folate, or the cyanocobalamin versus methylcobalamin, there could be a problem because it doesn't get converted and it backs up into the system. The point is, if you take too much of that and you have that genetic issue, which by the way, over 40% of the population has that problem, they can end up with side effects. The other interesting thing about the ingredients is where do the raw materials actually come from to make these multivitamin mineral products? There's really only 3, maybe 4 companies right now that sell the raw ingredients for all of these synthetic vitamins, and they're chemical companies. And so that's where you're really getting these natural sounding vitamins. They have great marketing and pictures on the label. It's coming from a chemical company. So you're getting more chemicals synthesized into what you think is natural, but it's really not. That's the ingredients. We talked about the fillers. Let's talk about the ownership. Nearly 100% of all of these big multivitamin mineral products that sell these products in the billions are basically owned by big pharma or big food or big chemical or large investment groups, okay? They are not small companies, mom and pop shop. It's hard to know who's behind them as far as an individual. And this is the problem with any products. You want to kind of know who's behind the product and can you trust them? Unfortunately, big pharma has a history of criminal actions. So we're dealing with a lot of fraud within the big pharma industry. And so I personally want to know who's behind my vitamin and do they have a good track record? And what's their vision for the future? Is it to make more quality vitamins or is it to make cheaper vitamins? And that's really what you're dealing with. You're getting the cheapest thing possible so people can afford it, but at the cost of quality. Now, I also mentioned what's missing, actual natural from nature vitamins, and also these cofactors right here. So you have vitamins and minerals and trace minerals are cofactors that help biochemistry. But in nature, you also have phytonutrients. And that rarely ever comes in these products that I talked about, unless it's in the synthetic form. And what's the purpose of those? Well, antioxidant, anti-inflammatory. There are so many different great health effects that occur from phytonutrients. And this is a lot about how they come up with certain drugs. They model it after natural remedies, especially antioxidants and phytonutrients. And then they try to synthesize it, and then they mess it up. And then there's this last point I want to talk about. Standardized does not equal pure extract. If you look at the back of a nutritional label, okay, and let's say, for example, you're buying ginseng extract, and it says 100 milligrams, and it says standardized to 10% of this, the active compound in ginseng, which is 0.5 milligrams. You're thinking, oh, I must be getting a small portion of the active version in a blend of ginseng. No, what you're getting is only 0.5% of this with 95% a filler. That's right. And that could be silica, it could be maltodextrin, any of these fillers. This is just another label loophole that they try to, scam more people. Even with some of the vitamins that I sell, I had to pay more to the manufacturing company to not have it with these hidden fillers. And I have to constantly police that because most of the raw material out there has all these additional things that you don't want in your supplement. Who owns some of the top multivitamin mineral products? Well, Centrum Silver. Centrum is owned by Pfizer, One a Day by Berg, the same company that now owns Roundup Ready. Then we got Nature Made is also owned by another drug company that sells Abilify. But if we don't even talk about multivitamin mineral, just the top 100 vitamin companies on planet Earth, they're owned by 14 companies that are literally either big pharma, big food, aka junk food industry, or big chemical companies. And so I think it was just important to increase your awareness of what's really behind many of these multivitamin products. And they just might not be as natural as you might think. Now, since we're on the topic of natural and synthetic, there's a very, very interesting video I did a while ago on natural versus synthetic vitamin C that you must see. And I'm going to put that right here. Check it out right now.